Hey everyone, welcome back to our channel and to a brand new episode of Speaking Saturdays. Here we have a new set of questions, so without further ado, let's just get started. Do you like perfume? I like perfume, but at the same time, I cannot. There are some smells which really just trigger my nose, and I get into this coughing fit. So it depends on the kind of fragrance. Generally, though, I do enjoy certain types of fragrances, but I'm kind of very particular about it. So there's one that I have that's probably like 10 years old that I use, and it's a great fragrance. It's kind of mild but also not overpowering. Like some people, they just spray their entire bodies with tons of perfume and it gives you a headache. Yeah, I hate that. Do you use perfume? Yeah, of course I do. Anytime I go out, I have a few fragrances that I like. Some are perfumes, some are deodorants, some are perfume oils. It depends on the kind of mood that I'm in. It also depends on the season. But yeah, mostly whenever I go out, unless it's like, if I'm running errands or something, I usually don't. But if I'm going outside and it's not just like grocery shopping or something, then I usually put on perfume. Where do you spray perfume? The usual, areas. I've been told you should spray on the back of your ears and then on your wrists as well, on your elbow. The inner part of your elbow, and then around the back of your knee, and so on. So they kind of, I don't know, apparently it's supposed to help the fragrance kind of stay on longer. So yeah, that's normally what I do. Maybe like a little spritz in my hair. Have you ever given perfume as a gift? Yeah, actually, when I was 13 or 14, I was invited to a friend's birthday party and I didn't really know what to get, so I just went to a store and it was a small local store, okay? And again, I didn't have much money. I just saved my pocket money and I had this little bit saved up. So I'm like, okay, well, you cannot just go empty-handed, right? That's rude. So I knew she liked perfume, so I was like, okay, let me find something that's within my budget. And I did, and thankfully she liked it. I think perfume is a very risky thing to buy unless you know someone very, very well. Because again, everybody likes different kinds of smells, right? And then your own body chemistry reacts differently to different fragrances. So, risky purchase, but it worked out. Now we go on to section 2 or part 2, and here's our question. Describe a movie or a film that you felt strongly about. You should say what it was, when you watched it, what it was about, and explain why you feel strongly about it. Great. I need no preparation here. So, I think this was maybe 10, 12 years ago. This was like way back, I think in the mid 2010s. I think, I'm not really sure. But I found out, I think it was on Internet Archive or maybe I downloaded it, I don't remember. But I found this movie, Nosferatu, and it's this silent movie from 1922, I think, if I'm not wrong. 1922 or 1921. I'm not sure exactly, but it's basically like a 100-year-old movie at this point. And of course, in the early 1900s, you didn't really have the best technology, and most movies of that era tended to be silent movies. So they may have had soundtracks, but mostly they didn't. The one that I saw did have a soundtrack, but that's because someone, made the soundtrack. Like technically, Nosferatu is supposed to be a lost film because, it was based off Bram Stoker's book, Dracula, right? And then something happened. I guess Bram Stoker's widow didn't like Nosferatu, and there were some legal issues, and so many copies of the film, the originals, were destroyed. So what we have now is just bits and pieces, slapped together. But I think that film is just a classic. Given the technology of that time, it still managed to convey the story so well. And I think the fact that they had to make do with such rudimentary technology makes the film a lot more, it's a lot creepier. And especially considering that 1920s, 30s, that was the time. And of course, I mean, I don't know if you know, but Nosferatu, the original one, it's a German production. And at that time, the main kind of style was expressionist cinema. So the way that the actors act is very over the top, very dramatic. Because again, remember, there's no like speaking, there's no dialogue. It's a silent movie. So they really have to push themselves with their facial expressions, with their body, with their movement, and all of that. And it's really crazy that they managed to. I mean, I think a film is more than just, like, oh, how many special effects does it have, and CGI, and this and that. I personally don't care about such things. So I found that this was very artistically made and it really kind of pulls you into that environment. I think it's still one of my like top most. I don't know if it's like my number one favorite movie because I can never pick a favorite, but it's definitely at the very top. First of all, I just love the expressionist style. I think expressionist cinema is at the very top, like my favorite. I just love all the exaggeration and the I mean the colors as well and the storyline. Like they would have like little bits of text between scenes that kind of explain what's going on. Not really explain, but kind of set the scene in a way. And I had already read Dracula, so I kind of low key knew what to expect. And a lot of people don't like it when there's a movie adaptation of a book. But I mean, we're not talking about like Twilight coming from a book to a movie or something like that. We're talking about like 100 years ago. So things were really different back then. And this is still, it's not like super popular or anything, but it's definitely a cult classic. Now we go on to section three. Do most people prefer to watch movies at home or in a cinema? Why? I don't know. I think most people, like at least where I live, I think they still prefer to go out because watching a movie is more like it's not just for many people, not for me personally, but for most people, it's like they go out because they want to have an experience with their friends, with their family. So it's not just, oh, we're going to watch a movie. It's more like, oh, we're going to like obviously the screen is huge and the sound effects and like you really when you're in a cinema hall you're surrounded, so everything is so much more heightened, right? And of course you get to have a good time with your friends or your family, whomever you're hanging out with. So it's not like one activity, it's more like two or three activities. You get to spend quality time, you get to go somewhere outside. Of course nowadays, I mean, there's streaming services. I personally don't like going out too much. I would rather just be comfortable at home and not have someone's head blocking the screen. But yeah, most people would still, go outside because it's more than just watching the movie. It's the whole package, it's the whole experience that matters to them. What kind of movies must be seen in the cinema to be fully appreciated? Oh, I think anything that's more than like for example, the kind of movies that I like, they tend to be like, let's say, expressionist cinema, French New Wave, things like that, noir movies, etc. But if you have like a especially modern ones, I think if you're watching like an action thriller, something like that, even a lot of modern horror movies, I mean, specifically ones that have a lot of like sound effects and visual effects. If you're watching like one of those 3D, 4D, whatever movies, I think there you really need to go to a cinema because, again, I mean, how are you going to replicate that whole 3D thing at home, right? I mean, I guess you could, but that would be super duper expensive. So if I mean, I remember going to the cinema to watch The Nun, and wow, I mean, all the sound effects and everything, that it's like, it like creeps up on you and you really feel the adrenaline in your heart, like, oh, okay, that was really, I mean, the story itself was whatever, but the way that you get scared and you feel everything and you feel goosebumps and you feel that, adrenaline surge when you hear all the sounds and the tiny things. So it's very amplified. So yeah, I mean, if you're, depends on the kind of film, really. But yeah, if you're just watching something like, let's say, A Woman is a Woman, which is a film, a French New Wave film, you could watch at home on your laptop. You don't need like it's just the kind of filmmaking technique. I think that's really what influences whether you decide to watch it at home, on your phone maybe, or in a proper cinema hall. What can cinemas do to attract more audiences? Yeah, maybe they need to cut down on costs. I mean, it's ridiculous how much you're expected to pay for popcorn and drinks and whatever. It's highway robbery. Come on. So they need to. I mean, this is a great question, because the way I see it, I mean, with the news that's coming out, a lot of movie theaters, they're reporting losses or they're just not really profitable a whole lot. And I mean, ticket prices are relatively affordable. I don't think anyone's complaining about ticket prices, but it's the fact that you have all of these things that add to the experience, like even water is ridiculously overpriced. So, if you, had like incentives for people to come out, like, in groups, right? That could definitely increase your, minimum ticket size. And I mean, I love thinking about things like this because it's also kind of my field, thinking about marketing, advertising, business, selling. So maybe if you, had like incentives for people to not just go alone, but bring someone with you, more incentives if you come out in a group, maybe you get a bigger discount on something that could just, get butts in seats, as we say, very crudely and informally. But yeah, I mean, I can remember, I mean, all the times that I've been lately, I mean, the cinema hall's largely been empty. So, I mean, that's nice for me, but I have to think, how on earth are they going to continue their operations? Because there's no way they're profitable. Do you think people can learn new cultures through movies? Absolutely. I mean, I think watching films from a certain culture or language or country is a great way to learn about that, region's culture. I mean, TV shows can do the same thing, but TV shows are very long, drawn out, of course. But a movie, can teach you so much. Like you have, for example, like as I was talking about expressionist cinema, right? So it's very like very expressive, very over the top, and it kind of ties in with this Sturm und Drang. It's in German, this period, literary period, which again kind of shows you certain characteristics about a country's general, the population's ideals, mentality, way of life. French New Wave, for example, a lot of these movies really make you think. And of course, I mean, France is known for literature, academia, and so on. And then you have Italian movies, they're always crazy, full of passion. It kind of, I mean, of course, there's a little bit of, playing into these stereotypes a little bit, but I mean, there's a little bit of truth in every stereotype, isn't there? I think that's a great way. And of course, you get to, depending on which kind of film you pick, you get to learn a lot of, especially in terms of vocabulary, learning vocabulary from a book versus learning it from like, real people, that's a whole different thing. So it helps a lot. You get to understand, what kind of things do people do over here? What kind of beliefs do they have? What's normal? What's common? What's not? But of course, I mean, movies don't always have to reflect real life, because I mean, actually, the best movies do reflect real life because real life is actually much stranger than fiction, I think you could come up with. But that's a topic for another day. All right, so that was our speaking test for today. And if you like the video, don't forget to click on like and leave a comment down below if you'd like, to chat, if you'd like to ask anything. I'm all up for it. All right, then I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.